or not. So maybe we'll see. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, whatever time it is in New Zealand. I have no idea. But the name of the show on American Hammers TV, part of the American Hammers Network, is Friday Night Likes. Never mind that it's only 4:34 in the afternoon in Boston. It will be pitch dark by the time we're done with this, 5 o'clock in the afternoon or later. So that counts as night. So it's going to be Friday night as far as we're concerned. Your host is usually John Nolan, who is so good at hosting this show and does such a good job. I won't do anywhere near as good a job as he does, but we'll have fun with it anyway, and we'll have a good time. Before we start, be aware that my children may come storming up the steps into the attic at any moment to say hello. So if they do, then we'll say hi to them, and then they'll hopefully run away and do whatever it is they do in the afternoons after school. The bad news is I'm not sure our website is up right now, but if you can get to AmericanHammers.net, check us out. Check out our threadless store. Check out our scarves, which are now for sale there, and all of our shows and our content. And if you can't get to it, well, just watch this instead, and we'll fix the website in the meantime. Anyway, so with us, and John just pointed out that we have 3 continents represented, and not even all that close to each other because we get quite a distance here. With us is AJ from Kiwi Hammers in Wellington, New Zealand, First Nation of Rugby. Sorry, I know South Africa are the champions, but I still think New Zealand is the First Nation of Rugby. We have Rob Banks.
Okay, I'm not a...
Well, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I think of it that way. We have Rob Banks, who is the author of 4 fantastic books on his life as a West Ham supporter. The latest of which is An Irrational Hatred of Everything, which is as good a title as of a book about West Ham as I've ever heard, and it's appropriate as I've ever heard. And it's a fantastic book. Really pick it up and read it. I got the Kindle version, read it on my phone. It was great. And I will get to the other 3 at some point. But anyway, Rob talked to me a few months ago on our show, and it was a wonderful interview. So check that out too if you want to go back to the archive. And John from WHU TV in Essex, the spiritual homeland of West Ham, where most West Ham supporters live in Essex, which my wife has been telling me how to say that now for a long time, because I always said Essex, and she says you got to put like an X on the end, like Essex. So anyway, we have a town in Massachusetts called Essex. So I've been working on that for a long time. I see Wally in the chat room, and I'm hoping that he is going to keep score for us today, because I am fully unprepared to do that. But and I see a bunch of people in the chat room too. Look, Mark's here, Tebow, Jess Winder. Who else is here? Anyway, Thomas. Yeah, tons of people. This is great. We've got a huge crowd on. I'm not used to this many people. I'm getting real nervous. Anyway, you guys know hopefully how the game works. We're going to have a few questions about what's going on at West Ham, and the guests are going to give us their takes, which means after this little spiel, very little talking from me and a lot of talking from everybody else. So you can look forward to that. And I guess I will be the judge. And if I like something, I don't have John's little thumb that he holds up, and I did not think to craft one. So instead, I am using, I'll try to put this up in my lousy camera. This is my 1975 FA Cup winners mug. I was telling AJ before we started, my brother-in-law's dad gave this to me. He lived in England for a while. He would see West Ham a few times back in the 70s. He bought this mug, and I'm actually really proud of it. I love it. So this is how I'm going to signal pleasure, things that you guys have.
Whiskey in there at all, is there? Ain't none at all. Just
yeah. It's honestly, there's not right now. There's not. It's kind of sad, but it's true. It's certainly at 4:30 in the afternoon. I'd be justified on a Friday, but I'm going to try to stay awake for the whole show. So that's kind of the goal at this point. Wally will keep score. That's great, because I cannot talk and keep score at the same time. I am not legally allowed to do math in the United States. I'm not smart enough to count. So with all that done, let's get started. I'm going to look at my list of questions here. Now, these guys have hopefully all seen and looked at the questions in advance so that we won't be blindsided by this. First topic is David Sullivan's interview that he gave to the Evening Standard. I think you guys probably all saw it. And I think he's given a couple more as well. The one I read was in the Evening Standard. He said a lot of stuff. Most of it was crap, as it always is. But he said one thing that stuck out with me, or to me. He said, overall, I believe the club is in a far better state than 10 years ago, because we're coming up on almost exactly 10 years since Gold, Sullivan, and Brady took over. So the first question, very simple. Agree or disagree with what he said? Are we in a better state than 10 years ago? And tell me specifically why you feel the way you do, positive or negative. And let's go around the clock here. Let's go with, we'll start with you, AJ.
Well, I genuinely disagree with that, because if you think about it, we were sitting in 16th when they first came in. Look at where we are now. Ahead of this Everton game, where are we? We're in 16th. We've had ups, we've had downs. Look at the relegation, look at the promotion. Look, need I say any more?
Not really. Let me throw this out. Let me throw this out for you and everybody else. Right? Let's consider the financial situation and positives and negatives of that, because we were heading into administration in 2010. That much is true.
Yeah.
They came in. They I don't want to say saved the club, but they kept us out of administration, at least at the time, which they deserve some credit for. But then, and they've reduced the debt, and we were in a better financial position probably, but they are still, of course, taking interest on loans they gave to the club, which means they're just really profiting off of the club while not really investing in it. So let me throw that out there too, and I'll give you another shot, AJ. Better or worse than 10 years ago, from the brink of administration to these guys kind of bleeding us for their profit.
I don't think it's really fair to say that they saved us, having looked into it, in quite a lot of depth research in the book. There were a number of other bids out there at the time, and maybe they were successful more because of the failings of the other bidders, rather than any particular acumen they had, or suitability for running a football club. And any Birmingham City fans out there that talk to you about Golden Sullivan will tell you, or told us 10 years ago, what we could expect. And we, to be fair, we've got a rougher deal than they got, because they've still got St Andrews.
Yeah, that's another good point. Look, John, before I get to you, let me bounce back to AJ. Give you a fair shot. Did you want to talk about the money stuff too? Throw in a comment on that.
Well, I'd just say that financially wise, I would say we are in a slightly better position, but let's be real, it's not by much. It's marginal at best. I mean, as you quite rightly said, they're basically taking the interest. So no, I will have to say it's a marginal improvement.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I just noticed that Wally is with us. He's keeping score with us. Say hi, Wally. How you doing?
Hey, guys. Sorry, I forgot to click the last button to enter the backstage. You were probably wondering where I was, but
no worries. As long as you're here. How is
all you guys?
Funny to see you, Wally.
Hey, John.
Nice to meet you, Wally.
Hey, Robert. I've been reading your book, by the way. It's good. Really enjoying the first one, anyway. Yes.
Thank you.
How is the King of Prussia this week, Wally? King of Prussia, Pennsylvania. How's he doing? Is he high up on the throne?
The King of Prussia is always busy. We got the biggest mall in America, so we are always very proud.
Well, good for Bloomington, Minnesota. Might have something to say about that.
No, we are bigger by retail space. They have like an amusement park in there, but we have the more real retail space.
I'm going to text him and get him on the show before the show's over so you guys can argue about it. Anyway, I'm going to put you back, Wally, if you don't mind, and let's continue with if I even know how to do that. I think I've done it. There we go. Let's continue with our question. John, finally.
Okay, thank you.
John, go ahead. Give us your take. Are we better off now? That's the old Ronald Reagan question, how we got elected in 1984. Are you better off now than you were 4 years ago? Are we better off now than we were 10 years ago?
Well, first of all, Lee, I just want to say this feels like a Hammers version of Celebrity Squares. It's quite weird, this, but showing me age there, unfortunately, showing me age there. But do you know what, Lee? To be honest,
only Wally gets a Paul Lynn joke. Nobody else is going to get that. Anyway,
to be honest, my answer I'm not before AJ jumps down my throat. I'm legitimately not going to be sitting on the fence here. But the answer is both yes and no.
Okay.
Yes, we are because of what you said earlier about them taking over the debt. However, as AJ's you stated, mate, they have been taking they reduced it down from what 7% interest down to 4% over the last year or so. Even as bad as Mike Ashley has been as an owner of Newcastle, he didn't take any interest on it.
Correct.
So from that side of things, on paper and on the accounts, yes, the club is debt free and has been for, was it 2 or 3 years now? How long ago it was? But in the rest of reality, no, we're not better off in that term, because we have, as we've all been seeing over the last few days, we have a one sole scout. We have agents filling in for scouts. We have a very, very subpar training facility.
Oh, yes.
We are letting this. I'll come back to this on another question, which is very similar to this. But we are letting the assets that we are producing go. That's not very good financial sense, because all it's doing is plugging a hole temporarily. But yeah, as I say, just in general, there is more no than there is yes to that answer.
I think that's fair. Yeah, and I think I'll give you a couple of mugs on that one. Let's keep it. I'm trying to make it easy for Wally with the mugs, but yes, I absolutely. But you don't want to volunteer to be a scout, John? Didn't you see we're asking for volunteers to be scouts? Did you
literally
guys
voluntarily? Literally.
Yeah. No kidding. It actually says it's a volunteer position. I mean, this is crazy. It's like the way we used to run our semi-pro team in Lowell years ago. Hey, if you want to come help us. But this is a Premier League club, supposed to be the 18th wealthiest in the world. Can't even pay scouts. Anyway, this is not about me. This is about you guys. I'm sorry, I got mixed up here. So let's see. So let's talk about some specifics about the board. And you guys have brought this up a little bit, but I want to make it more difficult. Outside of the stadium move, which is very obvious here, outside of the stadium move, what's the worst thing this board has done over the last 10 years? And why don't we, AJ, we'll start with you again.
Well, all you really have to do is look at the season when we went down. I think that was probably the lowest point in the 10 years. I mean, you can look at the players all leaving. You can look at Dimitri Payet leaving the club the way he did. That's beside the point. It has to be that relegation season.
Yeah. I mean, Avram Grant, right? I mean, of course, we're getting a little bit of a flashback of that now. Robert, what's your take? Worst thing?
Yeah, I had the appointment of Avram Grant as the dumbest thing they did, other than moving us. But obviously, not just the appointment of him, but the way they handled his proposed exit in the January of that season as well. I mean, if ever the club was made to look like a laughing stock, and let's face it, it has been over the last 10 years, more than any other point in his history. And we have made some fantastic blunders in our history, but the last 10 years has just been, we've just leapt from one disaster to another. And I think for me, the way they undermined Grant in the January of that season, I mean, he was even saying goodbye to everyone after. I think we lost at home to Arsenal in the January, gave a very, very weak performance. And just watching that guy, the way they treated him, and obviously, I don't know how much truth there was in the fact that Martin O'Neill was being lined up to replace him, and he got cold feet when the story got leaked. They obviously thought that it was a done deal, or there was a deal in place to get rid of Grant, but no one told Grant until the last minute, and it all backfired. So of course, then they couldn't give him any money. Do you give money to a manager who you've publicly sort of said you don't rate, and they end up with the likes of oh God, I can't remember who came in that January window, but
the Dad's Army. That was the Dad's Army season, Robert, wasn't it? When we brought in like Robbie Keane and
that's right, yeah.
Every over 35 player in England and brought him in.
Yeah. I mean, just a complete embarrassment. I think you'd have to put up me personally. That's the lowest point
John, how about you?
I'm going to try and keep this as short as possible, Lee, if I'm honest.
We only have
Here we go. Here we go.
There's an absolute lot. To be in a nutshell, just running off the back of Robert, what you were saying there, is appointing Karen Brady. She was the one that has caused most of the problems. Not all of them. They've all had their hand in it themselves, but she was the one. She was the one that blabbed to Sky Sports before Martin O'Neill was announced. She is the one that is treating us like customers and not people and supporters for that matter. Gordon Bennett. I honestly think because they weren't a big fan of Zola. I honestly think if we'd have kept hold of him until the end of the season, rather than booting him out and putting in Avon Grant halfway through it, I think things would have been inevitable anyway. But we would have gone under a little bit more stylishly, quite frankly. The way that we're almost doing it now. But the worst thing is ignoring the supporter base. You can't get much worse than that. Not listening to what we're talking about. For anybody that's watching this UK time, US time this time tomorrow, they would have had 2 protests in 2 years. That's not good ownership. And the problem is, Robert, as you're saying, this is all going down exactly the same steps, literally step by step of what happened with Birmingham. Because they didn't listen to them, they protested, and then they sold the club to the first person, and that was it. That's my worry. That's going to be the worst thing, is they will sell to somebody that isn't fit enough, and that's me saying that about the board, selling the club to somebody that's going to be even less fit to run a club than they are.
Yeah, which is terrifying, but it's still a possibility. Yes, yeah, absolutely, that makes a lot of sense. All right, hardest question I'm going to ask all day. All right. Probably the shortest series of answers. And John, we'll start with you, maybe go backwards this time. The best thing they've done in 10 years. Which can be the least worst. All right. So I mean,
yeah.
Easy.
Is there even such an answer?
I don't know. Maybe not.
I've been struggling with this all day since Tim gave me the questions. I've been struggling with this. The only thing I can think that they've done legitimately well, taking all things considered, was the closing ceremony. That's it. I legitimately can't think of anything else. Yes, you can say all right to a degree about bringing in certain players, but that's more down to the recruitment stuff that just is now non-existent. But honestly, that's it. That's the highest point.
And let's be honest too, John. It's a good answer. Let's be honest. Winston Reed had more to do with that than they did, really.
But it's not just that; it's getting everybody together that came in that were wanting to do it. The videos that they shot, the stand-in for Bobby Moore to shut the lights off, and I'm not afraid to say it, I cried when that happened.
Absolutely,
that video came up. So that was in a way, I guess that was the last nail on the coffin of the West Ham that we know.
Yeah, I think. Well, yeah, that's obviously. And I'm pointing up a few things from the chat room. By the way, folks in the chat room, I forgot to tell you, you guys come up with a consensus on who you think is the best of our little debate today, and the person with 2 extra points. I think that's how it works anyway. So Rob, give us your best of the last 10 years from the board.
For me, it's just the appointment of Slaven Bilic. In 2015, inspired choice at the time for our last season at the Bowling. I think he was the ideal candidate for what turned out to be. And let's face it, we've had the 10 years. It's the standout season, not just because it was our final season at the Bowling, but because of the quality of the football that was played. So it was fitting that we had a former player, a player who, left in somewhat dubious circumstances, but was generally appreciated, to come back and take the team. I think Dimitri Payet was on his shopping list right from the very start, so they at least backed him with that purchase. And if it hadn't been for him, we would all be talking about that last season at the Bowling as just another season. So
no, you're right. Go ahead. I apologize.
Yeah, the carpet was second on the list. But
once Antonio blessed it, no, it's a good answer. Payet in particular. I have a lot of thoughts about him we won't get into today, but everybody does. AJ, what's your best of the last decade?
I have to agree with Rob and John on this one. I think that whole 15-16 campaign, as John said, the lack of recruitment lack of the recruitment policy, so to speak, in the last couple of years has just been absolutely diabolical. But for that 2015-16 campaign, I think that was one of our strongest seasons in the Premier League era, and I'm not afraid to admit that one. Rob's absolutely right. The appointment of Slaven Bilic was absolutely brilliant. I think it was the right call we needed to make after Sam Allardyce's reign of terror at the club. And again,
the Baron.
I'm not afraid to admit that either. I mean, do you see this mug? But I think the epitome of that. Of the last 10 years has to be that closing ceremony. What a way to finish off the life of the Boland Stadium. I mean, we go 2-1 down to Man U, only for Winston Reid to bring us back 3-2 on the last ever home game at Upton Park. I have to admit that game did bring more than one tear to the eye, that's for sure.
And it kind of feels, and I say this as somebody who only went to the Bowling one time, and obviously I don't live over there, don't go to the matches, but it sort of still feels as like the last real West Ham game in a way.
Yeah.
And I hope that's not the case forever. Hopefully we'll get an FA Cup final or something this season, and that'll change, but, not holding my breath. Anyway.
Did you just give a like to yourself there, Lee?
What's that?
Did you just give a like to yourself? Put the mug in shot and then back out again.
Yeah, Wally, put one for me. Go ahead, Wally. That's fine. I'll give it. I'll just bless myself or something. Anyway, thank you. That's nice. Let's move on to the Baroness. She spoke just like a Baroness, or did she? Karen Brady. Oh, so the question is, Karen Brady, hot or super hot? No, I'm just kidding. I'm only kidding. Karen Brady said in her interview on Sky, football is about managing people. I'm paraphrasing obviously a little bit. She says football is all about managing people. Football clubs don't make anything. It's all about people, how you manage people. So let's put the fans aside for a minute because I think we know how we feel about that. What is your take on how the board have managed our players and managers in the last 10 years? Because that's what she was talking about. Sorry, let's go with Rob. Why don't you start first this time?
Complete and utter tripe. For that, what?
No, I actually eat tripe. I lived in France. I love tripe. So.
Oh no!
Because I hate mayonnaise.
The reason I use the word tripe is because it makes me want to throw up. It's absolutely disgusting stuff. Karen Brady, to say something like that, it's all about how you manage people. Well, they've displayed absolutely zero ability in managing managers or players throughout their 10-year. I mean, like you say, aside from the fans who they've completely ignored, managers they've undermined one after the other. My comments earlier about Avram Grant's situation just go to back that up. And like you said, John, that was Brady was behind a lot of that. Her column in the Sun is used as a vehicle to forward her own comments and not be at all in any way, shape, or form helpful towards the running of the club or the management of individuals at the club. And I seem to recall, I can't remember where it came from, but they sent text messages to all the players asking whether a manager should be sacked or not. How? I saw that question and I thought, how long have we got? Because you could just go on and on and on with examples of how they couldn't manage their way out of a fucking paper bag, to be honest. yeah, move on.
No, the fair, and excellent answer. AJ, let's go to you next.
Well, as Robert quite rightly put, they couldn't manage their way out of a paper bag, and I think that sums up Lady Brady, or whatever you want to call her, and Golden Sullivan, to be honest, because you said before, Lee, that you don't, you quite like David Gold, and yes,
well,
David Gold can be quite good, but those moments I've found are very few and far between. I think when it comes to Karen Brady, she is as toxic and as venomous as they come. Why she even got picked up by these two is absolutely beyond me, because what I don't understand is how a person in her role can even have the time to sit down and write in a scummy newspaper such as The Sun. It makes no sense.
Yep.
I find it a big breach of certain policies of the club, because we're in a busy.
Because I ghostwrite for people at work all the time. Not that kind of thing, but I ghostwrite for executives at work all the time. Do you think she writes it or just reads it and says, "Yeah, fine, whatever"?
I think she's writing it. I think she is the one that is writing it, and I think she needs to be held accountable for some of the comments that she has made. But unfortunately, the board have become that spineless that in the grand scheme of things, it's Gold Sullivan at the top, Brady in that second part of the pyramid, and then the board. She overrules the board on the decision making, and she kisses up to Golden Sullivan for that fat paycheck every week, and it's disgusting. It is absolutely despicable.
Yeah, no, it is. She's horrible. I have no respect for her. And as I said on Wednesday night when we had our show, I would not comment on a woman's looks, except that I have no respect for her. That's why I say things about how she looks. Normally, I don't think it's appropriate to talk about that, but with her, I have no respect for her anyway, so it doesn't matter. All right, John, what do you think? What's your take on how the board and KB in particular have managed our players and our managers?
Make yourselves comfortable, gents. This is going to take a while.
Here we go.
AJ's used to this.
Grab the eye masks before he starts.
Every single syllable that came out of Brady's mouth on that Sky News program was complete bullshit. Every single part of it, right? Saying that we've got a 60,000 capacity stadium. To be honest with you, Lee, I haven't got enough time to count every single seat, so I'll have to take their word for on that one, right? Saying 54,000 season ticket holders. Again, take it with a pinch of salt. For example, Bournemouth at home. We all know how they love to fudge the figures. Bournemouth at home, attendance 59,917. For those who were actually at the game for that, they had the Bournemouth away tier was the upper tier part of it, I should say, was completely empty.
Yeah.
Plus, loads of seats dotted around all over the place.
You can see that.
And they're telling us that only 83 people didn't turn up. Sorry, no, but. Also, saying when he was asked about the differences between being 17th when they took us over, took over, and us 16th now, she said that when referring to West Ham's position in the league, she said it sums it right up. She said that the position haunts her almost every day. It haunts us every single second we're awake and asleep.
Sure does.
Right, and also, and just honestly, this I could go on. It's all of it's complete bullshit. The fact she said that one of the things that she said about the league table has been misinterpreted in a few ways, because it's not clear what she's referring to. So, from both points of view, it's saying that we're in the Premier League because of the London Stadium. Bullshit. We're in the financial top 20 richest teams in the world because of the London Stadium. Bullshit. We were 20th in the season before we moved to the London Stadium in that league. So she knows absolutely nothing. The sooner she shuts up, the sooner we as supporters and West Ham, for that matter, will be a happier place for the players to play and to work at. Because at the end of the day, let's not forget, right, that they're not managing any part of this club properly whatsoever.
Yeah, and I think it's worse even than you say. And I agree with you that I think the worst thing is, John, that she does know what's going on and she's lying about it. I think it's not that she doesn't know what's happening. I think it's that she knows what's happening. She's not telling the truth. Which kind of, to be honest, the answers you guys gave kind of covered the second question I was going to ask about her, which was about the move to the London Stadium or the Olympic Stadium, whatever we're calling it. I think it's not worth going over that again. So let's move to the next one. Let's talk about outside of selling up. All right. Outside of selling up, what can the board do? Whoops, I didn't mean to do that. What can the board do to gain? I won't say regain, because I don't think they ever had it. What can the board do to gain some trust or confidence among supporters other than selling the club? Is there anything they can do? What's the first thing? What's the most important thing? We'll go back to you, AJ, again to start.
Well, all you've got to do is look behind you. That crest that you have on your flag behind you, that one right there, I want that back. And I think a lot of West Ham fans do as well, because this whole West Ham United London bollocks is not us. We are not the only club in London. We are East London. We're damn proud of it.
Actually, that's a really good start. Yeah, that's a really good start. Would you feel better if it said East London on the badge? I would.
I wouldn't, no. Because for me, it's got to have the Boleyn Castle. It's all very well and good us moving to the fishbowl, as I like to call it. But you've got to have the castle. I'm sorry, but if they really cared about heritage, like they claim, they would not have changed the crest. And if they had, they would have put the castle in. They don't care. They don't care. As far as they're concerned, our history started when we moved to London Stadium.
Yeah, I agree. They don't care. That much is obvious. Let's swing down to you, John. First thing, one thing, most important thing, anything they can do to get us back as supporters?
Tell us where the money's going. Simple as that. £190.7 million revenue. And apparently we're broke. We're too broke to bring in players other than loans in January. We did that last time. We did that in the January window. We got relegated.
Sure did.
Right now, that's all we want to know. They've apologized. In all the apologized and twisted the words in the press stuff they've done this week. David Gold saying that it was hopeful promises. And and we should, and he did say, and David Sullivan said, there were a few things that they regret. They've apologized from that side of things, but it's not enough. It's just not enough. At the end of the day, like we're talking about, we're 18th for last season. We were 18th richest in the club. Yet we've got no scouts. We are getting rid of our assets, which are the youngsters coming through before they've even been given a good chance, with the exception of possibly Grady D and Garner. We can't class Rice as an asset, because for a junior, for that matter, because he wasn't actually really in the academy for more than 18 months or 2 years. Same way as Bobby Moore was, for example, as well. But that's all they need to do. Look, I mean, AJ and I talked about this. I think it was over the summer, mate, wasn't it? I think, where we said, look, if they say, look, right, we're not spending on players because we want to buy the stadium, then fine.
Yeah.
But the money's going nowhere else apart from, their pockets practically, which is against all the rules anyway. But there's no other way of putting it. It's 190 basically over the last 5 years from the financial league that we've been able to look at. They've had on average, the club's made about £166 million on revenue on average. So over 5 years. So that's almost £800 million that's come into the club, and we spent 150 over that same period of time, give or take.
Yeah.
Wages are capped at 50 million a season. Are capped at 77 million a season. Last season it was 50 million pound. Right. I know a lot of the investment goes on to the charity work they do in the communities and everything as well. That's fine. I haven't got an issue with that. Because David Sullivan said that by by next year they were planning to have something like 30 or 40 million into the players project thing, whatever it's called. That's fine. I haven't got an issue with the fact that they're giving back to the community, but they're not giving back enough because they're not investing in the areas they should be doing, and they need to come out and tell us publicly why that's the case, not hiding behind, oh sorry, yeah, we made a few mistakes and we went in with good intentions. 5 years ago they should have said that. Yeah, it's too late now.
Yeah, no, I absolutely. And the quote, I was looking for the quote and I can't find it, but Gold did, I think it was David Gold, said something along the lines of there are promises you keep and there are promises you don't keep. It was, I mean, I can imagine saying to my kids, well, boys, there are promises I keep, promises I don't keep. You know, that trip to Disneyland, it's actually going to be to an abandoned warehouse in Lowell. So, you know, promise I didn't keep. That's all. Anyway, Rob, your thoughts.
Yeah. It's going to be very difficult. It would be very difficult for them to do anything that might restore or engender any trust. I know there are people that do like them, but first thing is,
are there?
There are, I believe. I've not met any, or they never say so to my face.
There's at least one. There was one guy that. Sorry to interject, Rob, but there was one guy that was on West Ham Fan TV's podcast last week. Talking about his opinion as to why he loves the board. His Twitter account is Golden Sully, if I remember correctly.
Surely he's a wind-up merchant.
Yeah, that's real. Yeah. Anyway, sorry. Go ahead, Rob.
Yeah. The thing that I'd always said, like up until about 3-4 years ago, was just keep your trap shut, because Sullivan was always opening his mouth, and obviously Brady's column in the Sun and all that kind of thing. I think to a degree, other than the last few weeks, they had been doing that. They had been, since when Pellegrini was appointed, I think they did their best to keep their mouths shut and let him get on with it. But we really could do, because what they need to do is bring in someone at board level who actually understands the game, because you've got someone like Karen Brady. As I don't even know what her official title is. What is she at? Managing director? I don't know. But just because she was MD at Birmingham City for however long before the 10 years she's been here, doesn't make her qualified to run a football club. Just any more than it makes them qualified to be a chairman and or co-chairman. They're intrinsically unsuitable. So I don't think there's anything they can do. Maybe I don't necessarily have an issue with the badge. I think the reasoning behind it was that the castle was, relevant to the old site, and now we've moved away from that, so the castle's no longer relevant. And in the 60s and 50s and 60s and early 70s, we had no castle on the badge. So I don't know, but just communicate with the fans and prove that you understand what it takes to run a football club, whether it be in the Northern Premier League or the Premier League. Just show that you understand the basics, because I've not seen anything in the last 10 years other than wild guesses and the odd, like we said earlier about the appointment of Slaven Bilic. That was inspired, but I can't imagine it was down to any sort of detailed planning on their part.
Yeah, wasn't he our last candidate? I mean, didn't we go after?
Yeah, I think there might have been two ahead of him on their wish list, and they ended up with Slav. But so it wasn't through design.
Right. Yeah, and you're right about the badge. If you go back far enough, it didn't. What's funny about the castle, briefly, is there were people who didn't like the castle on the front of the ground, the old Boleyn ground, because they didn't. I didn't. That's what I'm talking.
I thought it looked cheap.
Yeah, like Disneyland, right? Like prop. Yeah. Wait a minute. Hang on, guys. Hang on. Here we go. Okay, we'll keep it.
Yay!
Quick with these. Come here, bud. Come here, boys. There we go.
Hi.
You can ask us a question.
These are my little hammers. Do you want to ask a question? Do you want to ask a question?
Okay.
He doesn't want to ask a question. All right. Who is this? This is Isaac.
Just check the front.
I had to
of the year.
Yeah.
Isaac's 9. He plays travel football for the town of Chelmsford, where we live. He's a good little. Usually plays on the wing, and he's pretty darn effective out there. This is Andrew. He has 6. I coach his team, his Chelmsford youth soccer team, his first grade team, and he's a great little player. Scored a very nice goal this past season. So they have never been on the show like this before. This is probably why. But anyway, these are my boys, and I just wanted to say hi. Okay, you guys need to go there watch TV, okay? Andrew. He's walking across the table. There he goes. All right. Thank you, boys.
Do they know anything about running a football club?
Do what?
Do they know anything about running a football club?
That's what happens when you can't remember their names, mate.
This is exactly what it's like to watch West Ham every Saturday. Glorious Death is as good a description of her. Okay. Hey, tell your mama I told you can watch more TV if you go down. All right. Thank you, boys. Thank you. Excellent. I told you it'd be worth it if they came up here.
Lock the door, Lee. Lock the door.
It doesn't lock. It just sits down there. Anyway, those are the boys that have been on before. So I thought, are they available to do some scouting? Only if you pay them, West Ham. I'm not going to have them do it for free. I'm not a sucker. I'm not going to send my kids over there for free. You fly us over, I'll do it for you. All right? How about that? You fly us over, give us season tickets for the rest of the season, give us a place to live. Out for you. That's fine. But I'm not doing it for free. Anyway, let's move to the last topic here. I know we don't have that much time left. Thank you for indulging me with the little guys. Tim's son comes on there and he just like smiles and waves. My son comes on, he walks across the table and hits me with a tennis racket. Anyway, let's talk about the transfer window. Last several questions here. It's January 17th, something like that. 17th, 18th, 17th. Anyway, we're getting close to the end of the window, and I have no idea if we're signing anybody than our repo man, Darren Randolph, who we're repossessing because Middlesbrough couldn't pay its bills. If the only signing we make is an injured repo keeper, and that may be possible, do we stay up, and how? Why don't we start with John? We'll start with you this time.
We're relegated if that's the only player we're bringing in, because we need at least 2 strikers. We need a box-to-box midfielder to balance the midfield, and we need at least 1, maybe 2 wing backs, one per position, really, 1 per flank, I should say. It screams of desperation. It really does. Apparently Randolph is as fit as the club can get him.
Yes.
So that means he's being substituted at half-time tomorrow or today, depending where you are.
I mean, David Moyes knew he was going to took this job, right? But you had to imagine he's answering that question like, well, he's as fit as we can get him. I don't know.
That's the funniest thing I've heard for a while. It really, really is. I mean, his medical took practically a week, right. So it says everything. But all jokes aside, I do legitimately think if we're only going to bring in a goalkeeper, then we are relegated, because it's, as George Graham used to say, the Arsenal manager, the goalkeeper is only as good as his defence. We need the defence to be more organised, and the only way we can really do that is to have proper drills 3 times a day, like Moyes did in his first tenure. But as I say, they all need to have. There's just so much wrong with it, Lee. It's unbelievable. But in short, if we will get relegated if we don't bring anybody else in the next 14 days.
Yeah, fair. Rob, probably a similar answer, I'm guessing, but I won't bias you. What do you?
I think everything hinges on who stays fit for the rest of the season, because if 1st of February comes and goes and the only signing we've made is Darren Randolph, and Haller picks up an injury or Antonio stays injured, we are fucked, because they're the only 2 that are showing any kind of signs of activity in front of goal. And we need to bring someone in that's gonna lift everybody and give someone a bit of motivation. I have every confidence in. I have as much confidence as I can have in David Moyes. I think that he's been here and done it before. Although you have to remember, in that period there was a very low period, sort of February, March time, when it really looked as though we were going down. Yeah. And other than we picked up a few unexpected results towards the end of the season. And if we go through a similar run, February, March, we're doomed.
Yeah, absolutely. I do remember that run. You're right. You're right, Rob. I remember that. I remember the relief when we did go down. Even though I think we finished higher in the table, it was flattered us. It flattered us in the end. AJ, what's your take?
I'm going to throw the cat among some pigeons, and I'm going to say yes and no. Yes, I think we would be able to stay up, but it depends on the fitness levels of the players. It depends on whether or not Moyes is going to put them through the drills like he did that first tenure, as John said. I also think, though, if we get those injuries, if we go through that bad rot again, it could be the difference between Premier League action 2020 to 2021 or EFL Championship. In which case, though, we've got to remember we'll have the best stadium in the league.
That's correct. Absolutely. Well,
if Newcastle don't join us, mate,
that's a great segue into. I'm gonna ask our last question. I'm gonna skip. We were gonna talk about whether or not you trust Moyes, but I think we pretty much answered that, and Rob answered it directly. So we're running out of time a little bit, and obviously somebody's probably gonna burn down my house or something down there if we don't I don't stop soon. So this is the last question. It's a bit of a downer. I'm sorry, but I'm gonna ask anyway because it is a possibility. If we go down, what will you actually enjoy? What positive thing will you take into being in the championship? What will you actually enjoy about the championship? AJ, you started our first question. You can start our last question. What do you think? Anything?
Apart from Millwall away, I would have to say
yes.
But
wait, the nightmare scenario.
You.
They get promoted and we go down, right? They make the playoffs, they get promoted and we go down. That
would be the way. That would be the way it went, wouldn't it?
That would be the way it went. Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, go ahead.
I think the only thing that I can think of would have to be the period of rebuilding, doing what sort of like what Aston Villa have done, what Norwich have done. Yes, okay, for Norwich it's not exactly been the smoothest of sailings, but I think a season down in the championship to rebuild, to get rid of the dead wood, so to speak, and actually put together a team capable of taking it to the big boys week in, week out. I think that's got to be one of the biggest benefits to the championship. The other side of that, for your average football fan, the guy who's not committed to any one club, it would be probably the fact that West Ham get to play different teams that we haven't played in a few years. So, but yeah, for me, it's definitely got to be that rebuilding process. I think it's long overdue. And unfortunately, if we go down, then we have to go down. There's no changing it. I mean, we've been piss poor this season. I think this is probably one of the worst seasons I've seen us play in a few years. But to say I'm a bit nervous is a bit of an understatement.
Yeah, same here. I have a sense of dread every match now, even more than usual. All right, Rob, let's go to you next.
Best thing about being in the championship,
or anything good about it. Looking for positives in a negative situation.
Winning.
Last time it worked out well, didn't it? Yeah, it did.
I guess that's not guaranteed with these fucking muppets in charge, but just turning up to games and expecting to win would be nice. And I thoroughly enjoyed our last season in the championship. Thought it was great. So
it's funny
in a nerve-wracking kind of way.
Tim and I talk about that a lot because I think that was the first season when Tim really watched West Ham in a serious way. And I had been a fan for a few years, but it was funny. I actually enjoyed going into every match thinking we should and could get a result here. Of course, we ended up by the skin of our teeth making it through the playoffs because there's no other way West Ham could ever do it. But yeah, it was kind of nice in a way not to think, well, Liverpool this week we're going to get tonked. It was something different. Anyway, John, let's finish with you. What's your positive note if the disaster happens?
Golden Sullivan sell.
Do you think they do? Do you? Because they're
They
going
won't, because
wouldn't happen next season.
No, that's the thing, because we're not going to bounce back. We won't bounce back for a good few seasons, and that's my biggest worry. Is the fact that they will either cling on until they can make a profit, which means we're doomed for the eternity. I honestly think, I hate to say it, but I honestly think if we do go down, we're going to do a Leeds, and we're going to be there for a long time. The only that's the only positive, because I can't see us winning a playoff. We'll get rid of our best players. We'll bring in cheap players again. AJ, you're absolutely right, mate. We do need a real rebuilding scheme. But if we're going to do that, we're not going to do it with whoever's going to be. If Moyes is going to be in charge next season and being down in the Championship, I can't see it. The only positive, whoever we've got as a striker in that season, we'll get a few hat tricks. like Vazte at home against Brighton, that glorious win. But those days are few and far between.
And for you, John, and you, Robert, since you guys go to the matches, there is this always. Here in Boston, we call them the pink hats from the people. I mean, that's a little sexist because it's usually women, but the Boston Red Sox used to have a really hardcore fan base. And then after they won the World Series, a bunch of people showed up who'd never showed up before, and they weren't real fans. They were tourists, and it's been like that ever since. And I can't get this comment off the screen without putting another one up, but I'll put this one up since it seems relevant. Anyway, again, trying to look for light in the darkness here as best we can. Hopefully it won't happen. Hopefully it won't be an issue. Before we get to who won today, let's talk about who wins tomorrow quickly. I know I always say it's stupid to do this before we know who's playing or anything else, but just out of your gut, quickly, score tomorrow home to Everton, AJ.
2-2 draw.
Okay.
Richarlison, Sigurdsson ruled out. I think we've got a good chance of going into this game. I'd love to say we pick up the 3 points, we keep a clean sheet, all that. It's not going to happen tomorrow. I think a 2-2 draw at best. But if a sheer miracle happens, then the 3 points.
Fair enough. Rob, how about you?
I think a lot's going to depend on the planned protest and how the mood of the fans in the stadium, and if
this wasn't a mug question, but I'm giving you a mug anyway.
Yeah, if the fans are up for it tomorrow, I see us getting a 2-1 win.
Okay. Yeah, I have to believe. All right, John, what about you?
I'm sorry to be a downer here, guys, but I honestly think we're going to lose 3-1. I really, really do. It's got a tonking written all over it. It really does. I don't want to. I hate to say it, but I can't see anything out of it other than a loss. I really, really can't. I'd love to be able to go, yes, because don't get me wrong, we played well against Sheffield United. We've had some decent results, but unless a bloody miracle, and we've got 9 Antonios out there tomorrow, I can't see us getting any points. I really can't.
Yeah, I agree with you. I didn't quote unquote like that, but I'm afraid I think you're right. I have to believe we're going to win, and by noon tomorrow Eastern time, I may be crushed once again. But until then, I have to hope against hope because, quite frankly, this whole season has really brought me down. Anyway, we're just about done. Let's bring Wally back in. I'm sure I've been very generous with the mugs. John is very stingy with his likes on Friday Night Likes. I'm kind of the opposite. So let's bring Wally back in and see who's won our competition. Well, how are you, Wally? How's it going?
Great. So, yeah, Lee, unfortunately, you're in last place. We gave you the 1 like for your answer there. But then I had to take it back because you said you like tripe. So.
I do like tripe.
Good Lord.
I had tripe one time in the cafeteria where I worked in Paris. Even French people were moving away from me, while I was eating it. So I felt very authentic in that moment. But a Texan, I'll eat almost anything. Anyway, so Robert, you won the extra 2 points from our commenters, our chat group, whatever it's called. So congratulations. So Raleigh, what are our scores? Tile it up for us.
Yeah, I think we've got some record scores here. So we got AJ with 20. We've got Robert with 23, including his 2 extras, and JP John with 26. So
wow.
Okay.
That's some really high scores.
Well done, Jake. Well done to all of you, because you were all fantastic guests, and this was a lot of fun, and I really enjoyed doing it. Next Friday, I'm sure John will be back doing a much better job than I do. He's so calm, and I'm so hyper. He's a much better host than I am. I'm a better maybe guest than host. But anyway, Wally, thank you for keeping score. Rob, again, for those who don't know, and you all should, Rob has written 4 great books about supporting West Ham. The latest is called An Irrational Hatred of Everything. I read it. You should read it. It's really, really good. Buy it, please. Get it on your Kindle or something. Help them out. It's a fantastic book, well worth the read. Wally, you're reading it, you said?
Thank you.
I'm reading the first one, The Irrational Hatred of Luton.
Oh, okay.
And I love how it starts with the 1975 FA Cup, which I was in England during that time. So I hope I watched that game. I don't specifically remember it, but I hope I did.
Yeah, I read Rob's book, and then I read Chuck Corr's book because I talked to Chuck, and then Chuck gave me another book that he wrote. So I haven't gotten back to Rob's other 3, but I'm going to. I like to read more over the summer than in the winter.
Lee, we need to talk about Chuck. I'll email you separately.
We will do that, because we
thought
about getting his book back into print for charity purposes. Yeah. Great book. If you want to know that West Ham has never been a well-run club, read Chuck. Because it's all in there. It's all in there. Anyway, John, JP, WHUTV, a member of the fellow 1,000 subscriber club on YouTube. What are you up to now? 1,500, something like that?
Where are we? 1320 at last count.
Congratulations. It's great.
Thanks.
It's hard to do. It's a lot of work.
Tim, no, I haven't paid Wally off, mate. I haven't paid him off.
Yeah.
No, you were great, and we always like having you on. I know it's been a little while, but it's good to have you. And of course, AJ, from as far away from me as you could possibly get. I think I don't know that anywhere well into New Zealand if you're going to be on land and not in the middle of the ocean. Have you read any books, AJ, or anything like that? I don't know.
No, thank you guys for having me on. It's been an absolute blast. I think you guys have been. I've been with you guys right from the very start. Watching you guys grow. I mean, John and I talk about it all the time, and watching really great content creators grow like this. So you guys are the absolute bee's knees. So credit to all of you guys. Well done.
Thank you. We know you are,
agreed.
Part of the Kiwi Hammers, and we love the fact that West Ham is global and worldwide. And so keep it up in the Southern Hemisphere, and enjoy your summer. It is, and as I predicted, it is pitch dark. It is 5:32 p.m., which means in New England it's been nighttime for like 45 minutes. So anyway, we will be back with you. I don't know when. Tim will tell me eventually here in the chat room soon. But obviously match tomorrow at sometime your time, 10 a.m. here in the East Coast of the U.S. And all I can say is thank you guys very, very much, as always. And be with us.
Thank you for having me on.
Be with the spirit of Bobby Moore, whoever's up there looking after us. And come on, you Irons.
Irons.
Thank you.
All right.